Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Woodpecker's Deep Dive. My name is Jeff Farris. Welcome to my shop. Today, we're going to take a closer look at the new Ultra-Shear Chamfer Bits and how to use them to make miter joints. I'm going to make a small box where the grain runs continuously around all four corners, using a trick I first learned from Mark Spagnuolo. Now, whether you want continuous grain corners or not, these chamfer bits cut miter joints cleaner and with less hassle than a table saw. And I'll show you everything you need to know on how to machine them with your router table. We'll wrap up with a nifty trick on how to put them together. Okay, let's get started. The standard angle for chamfering an edge is 45 degrees. But Ultra-Shear's new 1/4 inch shank chamfer bits come in 5 angles: 22.5, 30, 45, 60, and 67.5 degrees, giving you a lot more design options. Now, I like to combine different angles and various depths of cut on opposite sides of the board to create different looks. We chose these specific angles so you can use these bits for joinery in addition to just breaking edges. You can make hexagons, octagons, and squares. And with both complementary angles, you can cut the joints with the stock horizontal or vertical. Today, we're going to make a rectangular box, but the process that I'm going to use is exactly the same for hexagons and octagons. Let's first take a look at how we can get a continuous grain match around all the corners. Now, typically, if you cut a mitered box out of one piece of stock, you can get the grain to wrap around all the corners except the last one. See on this hexagon how we have matching corners all the way around until we get to the last one. And now it doesn't match. That's because the joint is between the two original ends of the board. To get all the corners to match, we're just going to add one more step. We're going to resaw our stock and open it up like a book. When we cut our 4 sides, the grain will continue around all the corners. Now, technically, 2 of these joints are continuous grain and 2 of them are book matched. I only bring this up because it helped me wrap my head around how this works. The bottom line is the grain flows continuously all the way around. And for anyone that has ever made a box, they're going to stare at this and scratch their heads until you let them in on how you did it. So step 1 is to joint one face and one edge, and plane the second face parallel. We're not worried about dimension just yet. At this point, we just need it flat with 2 parallel faces, 1 square edge, and as thick as possible. Now I'll go to the bandsaw and slice the board right down the middle. Now, back to the jointer, and I want to take off as little as possible off the 2 new bandsawn faces. What was the middle of the board is going to be the outside of the box, and the less we take off, the better the grain match is going to be. Once we have the outside face flat, we'll go down to our final dimension of 3/8 of an inch, taking material off the inside surface of the box, where the grain match doesn't matter. I'm going to double check my saw and miter gauge to make sure I'm getting perfectly square cuts. Now I'm going to stack the boards together and square off one end. If your planer has any snipe, just square it off inside the snipe line. As long as you cut them together, you won't affect the grain match. Next, we need a short side and a long side from each of our boards. Now I'm going to make this box 5 inches by 8 inches. So I'll mark 5 inches on the top board and 8 inches on the bottom board. We'll allow for the kerf and mark 8 inches on the top board and 5 inches on the bottom board. These 2 ends form a book-matched corner. This joint is continuous, as is this one. And this one is the other book-matched corner. I'm going to set stops for the 2 dimensions and cut them up. I'm going to place the corners together. Double check that I have the outside faces outside, and draw the miter angles on the ends of the boards to keep me from making a serious mistake. Now, when I was planing the material down, I milled some test stock down to the same dimension. I'm going to use that to dial in my router table fence position and depth of cut. I'm putting the 2-flute 45-degree chamfer bit in my router, and I'm going to eyeball the depth of cut to just a little shallower than the full height of the chamfer. Fence position is pretty easy. Just use a straight edge to align the fence to the bearing on the chamfer bit. Now I'll make a test cut and sneak up on the depth of cut until there's just the tiniest bit of a flat left. If you raise the bit too high, you'll make the piece shorter, and the edge will be very weak. If you leave a tiny flat on the end, the dimensions will stay the same, and your corners will be stronger. Okay, now I'm going to use some scrap stock to back up the cut. I'm going to watch my miter layout lines carefully and route all 8 ends. I'm going to put this together with a rubber band so we can take a look at the grain match. Now you can build boxes where you don't have that one side that always has to sit against the wall. I'm going to cut a groove in for the bottom, and I'll make a lid. But before I get to that, I want to show you a little trick for assembling any type of a mitered box. I'm going to clamp a straight edge down to the table and clamp a stop at one end. Now I'll line up my sides in order with the mitered ends just touching. I'll apply a couple of strips of masking tape, making sure the sides stay aligned to the straight edge and to each other. Now I can bring the ends around, and in a perfect world, there's just a little bit of tension on the tape as I bring the last miter joint together. When you're gluing up, if your boards don't have any cup or twist, this tape may be all you need. If you do need to put a band clamp on it, it'll be a lot easier with it already taped up in position. Hey folks, I hope you enjoyed this closer look at the new Ultra-Shear Chamfer Bits and how to use them for flawless miter joints. If you did enjoy the video, be sure and give us a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you'll always know about every one of our latest videos. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time on Woodpecker's Deep Dive.